Teachers, what's the saddest thing you've ever found out about a student? I had a girl in my class multiple years in a row and usually get to know my students pretty well. She was always really happy and talkative until she wasn't. I started noticing it more, and she started constantly showing up to class late. I knew something was wrong, so one day after class, I asked her about it. She told me she started having to walk an hour to school every day because her mom sold her bike. It was freezing outside, and I asked her why she would do that. Then she got nervous. At first, I thought she just didn't want them to find out she was late, but she told me she needed the money to buy more alcohol. I couldn't watch it go on any longer and convinced our principal that she really needed a bike. We bought one for her, and she was so grateful that she finally seemed happy again. Her smile was contagious, but out of nowhere, she was once again late every morning. At the same time, I got numerous calls from an unknown number cursing me out. I thought it was a prank and never made the connection. I asked the girl what was going on, and she said her mom got rid of her new bike, but wouldn't tell me why. I told her she could talk to me, and eventually she broke down. Her mom was mad at her after she brought the bike home and assumed she got it from sleeping with me. I was disgusted and told her she could be honest if anything else was happening at home. Well, from what she told me, I ended up calling the police, and she now lives with much better step-parents.
When have you seen a calm person completely lose it? My brother was born with Down syndrome and was teased all through high school. He was always calm, and no matter how brutal the insults got, he never let it bother him. Kids would routinely make fun of him for looking different, and he'd honestly just ignore it or try to make fun of them back, until one day, he snapped. My mom was walking somewhere with him downtown, and a group of teenagers from his school decided they were gonna mess with him. They threw basically every chromosome joke at him they could, but when that didn't work, they moved on to my mom. She was pregnant at the time, and they started ridiculing her for giving birth to him. They were throwing empty food wrappers at her, asking her if she was gonna have another monkey baby. They kept going until my mom couldn't take it anymore. She just started crying. I don't know what he was thinking, but when my brother saw this, he simply lost control. He sprinted towards them, body slamming the kid who said that onto the ground. The rest of them ran away, trying to get the attention of nearby police. He wouldn't stop hitting the guy, so they had no choice but to put him in cuffs. When my dad and I heard what happened, we couldn't believe it was true. We went to court and saw him. Apparently, the kid suffered a broken nose. Then, we watched the judge take one look at my brother, just sitting there smiling, and let him walk free.
What did your boss say to you during a meeting that resulted in you immediately resigning? When I was younger, I was the assistant manager of a popular fast food chain. I'd been transferred to this location with the understanding that the current store manager was stepping down soon, and I was being groomed to take over. When he left, though, they gave the role to a 22-year-old who had zero experience and barely showed up to work. This guy would stroll in during the dinner rush with his little crew, ask how things were going. I'd say we were drowning, and he'd just say, "Cool, keep it up," and leave. I was basically doing both of our jobs while he worked part-time and collected the paycheck. We were constantly short-staffed. I begged the district manager weekly to let me hire more people. He said no, every single time. I even asked if we could borrow people from other stores just to keep us afloat. Still no. We were losing team members constantly. People were burning out fast. When I was allowed to hire, the new hires would quit after a day or two because the workload was insane. Then one day, we were told there would be a store meeting with the district manager. I already knew where this was going, so I printed out my resignation letter before clocking in. At the meeting, they told us our customer service numbers were tanking, orders late, phones not being answered. No surprise there. Our delivery drivers were doing 5 jobs at once. I spoke up again, said we needed help. He waved me off. I finished my shift, faxed my resignation with the end-of-day paperwork, dropped the keys in the slot, and walked out. Next morning, voicemails, texts. I finally answered. The district manager said, "I'll give you a raise, anything you want." I said, "4 new employees. You know I can't do that." Click. Never went back.
What's your most traumatic childhood memory? I was attacked by a horde of flaming squirrels. It started when I was laying by our fireplace with my puppy and eventually fell asleep. Then, I woke up to a loud cracking sound, and what followed next still haunts me. I heard a blood-curdling shriek, then watched as the first one fell from the fireplace. I shot up to see a baby squirrel literally on fire, run out of my fireplace and through my living room. It started trying to jump on me and then went for my best friend. It tried to attack my puppy, and 7-year-old me wasn't letting that happen, so I booted this little squirrel straight into the curtain to stop it. I thought that was bad enough, but then the rest fell from the chimney. 10 baby squirrels, literally on fire, charging out of my fireplace at me. I couldn't stop them, so I had no choice but to run away. My dog was chasing after them, picking them up with his mouth but dropping them because of the flames. My parents came in and saw the whole thing and started trying to hit them with a blanket. There were too many, and we had no choice but to go upstairs and call the fire department. By the time they got there, our living room was basically destroyed. Everything had burned thanks to the squirrels. I still have no idea where they came from, but this will haunt me forever.
What's your best "the tables have turned" moment? When I was in school, I had one particular teacher who hated me because I always got 100 on her tests without studying. She constantly argued with me, even saying she can't wait to look me up in the county jail in a few years. I stopped submitting her homework after that, but continued to ace her exams. She hated it so much that she even tried giving me a separate test from the rest of the class just to try and make me fail. Well, I actually noticed the questions were different and brought it up to the school administration. She got into a lot of trouble and found me the next day after class. She threatened me, saying I had just costed her a raise, and if I ever did something like that again, she'd make it her life's mission to make sure I don't graduate. Well, I went straight back to the assistant principal and told him about that too. She lost her job, and I completely forgot about her for the next 10 years. I went on to own a company, and after hiring new maids to clean one of my offices, guess who showed up? I literally went into shock after seeing her again, and we both looked at each other while both thinking the same thing. She actually apologized for what she did all those years ago and told me she was going through money trouble. I didn't hire her at my company, but she does clean my house. What's your best right place, right time story? A few years ago, my uncle was ordering a coffee in a very expensive cafe, and the cashier just happened to be the owner of the company. This This guy is probably one of the richest dudes in the entire city, but while he was ringing up the order, he started struggling to breathe. Before anyone could even ask him if he was okay, he started having a heart attack and collapsed. Thankfully, my uncle is a heart surgeon and immediately recognized what was going on. He was able to call for an ambulance and give him CPR until they could safely get him to the hospital where he helped save this guy's life. My uncle didn't find out who he was until after what happened and chose for it to be kept private because he didn't want to be on the news or anything. It wasn't until a month later when he went back to that coffee shop like he does every weekend. The owner was standing behind the counter again, and this was the first time he had seen him since he saved his life. When he recognized my uncle, he gave him a warm welcome and thanked him for what he had done. After he ordered a coffee and walked over to pay, the guy in all serious says, "Hey, last time we met you didn't pay for your coffee." He literally made him pay for both of them, and he just took it and never set foot in that place again. People who've accidentally killed someone. What happened? When I was 13, my friends and I loved climbing trees, so whenever we'd hang out, we would always look for the tallest ones we could find and climb them. One day, one of my friend's little brother really wanted to hang out with us, practically begging for hours to come with us that day. When we finally told him he could come, he was so excited. We made a deal that he had to carry the backpack full of snacks and drinks, and he agreed. He literally couldn't stop smiling. When we went out that day, the tree we were climbing was huge. I went up first, and every time I looked back down at everyone, he looked so happy. There was a spot near the top where we could all sit on a branch together. I got up there first and asked him to hand me the backpack full of snacks so it would be easier for him to get to where I was. He took it off, and when he reached up to give it to me, his foot slipped off the branch. Before he fell, he grabbed onto it, but didn't have the upper body strength to carry his own weight yet. None of us could get over to him in time. He let go and fell all the way down onto the rocks below us. He died instantly. I didn't stop shaking for days. The family chose not to press charges, but I still think if I hadn't asked him for the backpack, he'd still be alive.
Parents, what's the most heartbreaking thing you've experienced? I watched my son genuinely fall in love with a girl who was the most toxic person I've ever met, and one night when I overheard them breaking up, it terrified me. She was screaming her lungs out at him, breaking things, and I had no choice but to intervene. I told her she had to leave immediately, and she even tried slapping me on the way out. My son was crying after she left, but after talking to him, I found out it wasn't because of the breakup. He was nervous because the girl's ex-boyfriend had just been released from jail and was willing to do anything to get her back. This meant he was going to come for him, but I was able to calm him down, saying he probably wasn't going to hurt some random guy, especially since they were now broken up. 2 weeks later, she texted him and asked if they could meet up because she wanted to get back together. He hugged me and said, "Bye, Mom, love you," on the way out. Those were the last words I ever heard him say. The girl had gotten back with her ex, but decided it wasn't enough. They lured him over to a quieter neighborhood, and him along with 7 other guys beat him until he wasn't conscious. Thankfully, cops showed up and stopped them before they took it too far, but the damage was already done. He survived, but was left with severe brain damage and has since been nonverbal.
Parents, what's the most badass thing your child has done? My son was only 8 at the time and constantly got in trouble at his school. His teacher called me while I was at work, and when I answered, the first thing I noticed was that she was crying. I thought, great, what did he do now? When I asked, she told me he wasn't in trouble at all and actually started thanking me for raising my child so well. This caught me off guard, and I asked what she meant. Apparently, one of the awkward kids in his class who didn't have many friends had handed out birthday invitations to his whole class the day before. Right before they were about to leave class for lunch, he stood up and asked who was coming to his party that weekend. For about 5 seconds, their entire class was completely silent. His teacher said she could see the kid's smile fading away, and his eyes were starting to water. She didn't know what to do, and he went to sit back down when my son stood up and said, "I'm coming, I'll be there." Then, all of the other boys sitting around him started to follow his lead, saying they'd be there too. She said she had to hide her tears until they all left her class because she could see how relieved that kid's face was when they said they'd come to his party. He started smiling again, and she could tell he was genuinely really excited. I actually took him to get a PS3 that weekend.